Stossel, bigger homes, better cars, longer lives, the truth about today. Not just wrong, but insulting. This is a reaction video to John Stossel's video, which basically says millennials are just lazy whiners and that we live in the best of times, just like Voltaire's Candide.
Have you heard how young people suffer today?
I scream at the top of my lungs. Ah!
Social media is filled with videos that say,
younger generations are finding it harder and harder to get reliable jobs, afford comfortable homes, start a family.
we baby boomers had things so much easier.
Your father could somehow afford a house, a car, and also put multiple kids through college.
And now it's damn near impossible for normal people to get ahead financially or shoot, even own a home.
This meme gets millions of views. Once upon a time, meaning when I was a kid, a family could own a home, a car, and send their kids to college, all on one income. This meme is all over the internet. People believe it.
And that's really a fantasy?
Economist Norbert Michel. It's not true.
No, it seems really great to think that everything was so awesome back then, but it wasn't. Materially, we are so much better off now than we were in the 60s and 70s.
So according to John Stossel and this economist from the Cato Institute, we're better off materially now than we've ever been before. At best, I think this chart shows that this completely misses the point. This is a chart which translates wages in gold from the 1970s to today. In 1973, which was just a little over a year after we were taken off the gold standard by Nixon, the price of gold reached a peak of $120 per ounce, and the median income was $12,150. If we translate that $12,150 into gold, you could buy 101 ounces of gold in 1973 with your annual wage. Today's gold price is $3,979. If we translate that wage in gold, that would be the equivalent of $402,833 today. But the median wage today of a full-time worker is only $61,702, which means the difference is that there's a gap of $341,181. So the Federal Reserve and fiat money has stolen 300,000 plus of our wages, at least. And no, millennials cannot afford to buy a house. How stupid are these people? This chart shows the devastating effects of inflation, measured in gold instead of measured in the fake BLS or Federal Reserve inflation statistics. The price of gold in 1955 was $35 an ounce, fixed by the Bretton Woods Agreement. Nixon took us off the gold standard in 1971, and by 1973, gold hit a peak price of $120 an ounce. That is a 71% decrease in your purchasing power. In other words, it took 3.43 times as much money to buy the same thing. What's amazing is Stossel has done videos talking about how gold is a better hedge against inflation and is better money than fiat, and yet he ignores these obvious statistics. This is just outrageous. If we translate that in today's gold price, which is $3,979, that means since 1955, we've had a 99.1% decrease in the value of money, or that it takes 113 times as much money to buy the same goods. You can see it's a 97% decrease since 1973, which, of course, was when the baby boomers were reaching their peak earning years. So yes, baby boomers, particularly early baby boomers, made a lot more money/wealth compared to millennials today. Another point this misses is that as an American, you expect the next generation to always do better than the one before it. Presently, the next generations after the baby boomers, even the late baby boomers, have not done better. In fact, most have done worse than their parents did economically. Here is a clip by Jack Mahler, about the social costs of inflation, particularly for millennials. Jack Mallers, who's a highly successful, wealthy millennial in the Bitcoin space, knows the absolute devastating effects that this inflation has had on his generation.
This is a chart. This is the number of teenage suicides. If you notice, it goes up as time's gone on. This is the number of adolescent overdose deaths. It's gone up as time has gone on. How many kids out there watching, maybe at home, I'll look at the camera, how many of you guys have had to bury a classmate friend? I have. I see some hands in the crowd. How many of your buddies accidentally took fentanyl and killed themselves? Mine have. I see some hands out in the crowd. All of my friends are in debt, bad debt, trap debt. When we're 18, oh, you want to go learn how to be a teacher? You want to go learn how to be a businessman? You want to go learn how to be an artist? Take on $250,000 of debt to go to Harvard. You want to drive a car? Debt. You want to operate your daily expenses? Debt. You want to own a home? Debt. And so it's weird. You know, my generation, technology, opportunity, you know, we're part of the West, UK, Europe, America. But it just feels like there's something really, really wrong. And I know that my generation feels it. And sometimes when we go and we watch TV and we watch people like Jamie Dimon, it's beyond the point of, you know, making fun of the suits and stuff and wearing a hoodie. It's painful. You know, this headline, why millennials are facing the scariest financial future of any generation since the Great Depression. Since the Great Depression. But think about that. I think if you were to go around and ask kids my age, and I'm looking into the crowd, I see a lot of parents out there. Would you say that your kids think the economy's booming? Are they healthy? Are they happy? Seriously. I know they're not. I gave a version of this talk on Thursday, and I've had people come up to me and, you know, my kid is on antidepressants. I just put them through a divorce, can't find a job. And one of the main messages I want to convey in this talk is, I think it has a large part to do with the money. I really do.
I think these charts by Jack Mallers, who's a highly successful Bitcoin entrepreneur and a millennial, shows that Cato and John Stossel are completely out of touch. In their own way, they're repeating the stupid maxim, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. Another version of this, which is that the next generation is always lazy. The next generation doesn't get lazy. The reality is, generations respond to incentives given to them. As I've shown, the devastating effects of fiat currency and inflation have destroyed the wealth of Americans and enriched the political class and the financial class.
While young people get clicks asking, what's the point of working?
You can't even live in a house. Most people don't live in houses because it's too expensive.
That's just a factual mistake.
Census data show more Americans own homes today than did when I was a kid.
People are still buying homes, but it is far more expensive for them to be buying homes.
Progressives like Columbia professor Jeremy Ney here giving a TED talk about how inequality is a matter of life and death say the meme is right on.
This is correct.
That is correct.
But it's misleading. Houses are more expensive today, but they're bigger and nicer.
The homes that we're buying now are not the homes that people were buying in the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
4-bed, 3-bath with a 2-car garage.
We have bigger homes, better equipped homes.
Modern homes are much bigger than homes were when I was a kid. They're twice as likely to have central air, dishwashers, garbage disposals. Almost all homes now have washers and dryers. They didn't used to.
You would think that someone who understands the devastating effects of fiat and inflation would understand that the whole reason for larger homes today is it's a hedge against inflation. It's not a sign that we're wealthier. In fact, almost no one actually owns their home today. Almost everyone has a mortgage, and those mortgages get longer and longer and longer, and no one actually expects to own their home. They expect to just continue to pay this mortgage like they were paying rent. I think the idea that homes are better today than they were in the 1970s and 60s is a little bit misleading. I'm not sure the quality is as good. Building standards have forced us all to live in these clap-trap drywall POSs. The stat that home ownership is higher today is misleading, because that means you're counting all the people who have these 30 and 40-year mortgages. I think this is not only misleading, it's insulting.
The popular meme doesn't mention that. Homes were cheaper then because they're what people today call lousy homes.
The costs are still 10, 20 times higher.
No, they're not. Not if you adjust for inflation. Plus,
we spend a smaller share of our income on food, clothing, and housing than we did.
Here's the data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Americans now spend less of our money on food, clothing, and shelter.
We have a lot more things, and we don't have to work as hard to get them.
This is also insulting. They're not showing the huge increase in our tax burden, or the tax burden caused by the runaway inflation, or the decline in food quality. You would think two people who are supposedly free market capitalists would understand the devastating effects of the socialists who've taken over the United States. The government now controls well over 70% of the economy.
As a kid, few people lived like people do now.
Now it's the norm to go out for lunch. It's the norm to go out for dinner or to order in or to get Uber Eats.
My family never went out to eat.
People didn't have enough money.
Also, back then, families didn't fly places for vacation because flying cost so much more. Adjusted for inflation, a cross-country flight cost more than $1,000. Now it's about $300.
People did not just go on vacation. People did not fly all across the country.
But TikTokers say we young people have it so much tougher.
Hard work is not enough to make it anymore.
The game changed on the younger generation, right? Hard work alone is not enough because the deck is stacked against so many folks.
The idea that nobody had to work hard, that
This is a straw man argument. No one is suggesting that the baby boomers didn't work hard. That's not the point. The point is inflation has destroyed the earnings and the wealth of average Americans, and they cannot get ahead. As long as this inflationary environment exists, in which Washington controls the whole economy, it will be impossible for the average person, no matter how hard they work, to ever get ahead. The baby boomers didn't have to deal with a federal government that created a bioweapon and released it on its own people to kill off its own population, closing down almost every entrepreneurial retail business and the economy for over a year.
It's honestly very simple. Think about it. If the whole world needs dollars, and that's the system we designed, we just went through the history, how do they get the dollars? Our job as a country is to just print them and hand them out. So we print and hand out dollars to the rest of the world, and in turn, we get oil, we get energy, we get food, we get iPhones, we get beds, we get everything that we consume. So we don't actually do any proof of work. We don't export anything real. We just print paper and we give it out to the rest of the world, and in return, we get real stuff. Who wins from that system? The world and the elite win, and who loses from that system? You have to understand, there's a cost to everything. There is no free lunch. If we could just print money, why is there such thing as world hunger? Why is there such thing as poverty? Why is there such thing as depression?
I think this clip of Jack Mahler explaining how the money supply has been perverted and rigged in favor of the politically connected and the financial interests, which Cato and Stossel seem to be benefiting from, provides a devastating takedown of all this nonsense.
So let's look at the cost. Because I want to be super clear about something and have the back of my generation. We export dollars, but you know what else we export? Our jobs, our health, our stability, and our well-being. The cost of printing money is not paid in dollars. You hear very often that it's like, we have a lot of debt, but we could just print it, right? The cost isn't paid in the pieces of paper they print. You want to know what it's paid in? I'll tell you what it's paid in. It's paid by us, the people in this room, and especially the youth. We've been sold that global reserve status is some form of superpower and that I'm lucky. It's a disease. What about families? How have families performed since 1971? This is child per woman. We're in a population crisis. You see that line? That's when we started printing money. That's weird, isn't it? What about the percentage of children born to unwed women? It's not race specific. This is a global problem. What about the median age people are getting married, creating family, creating bond, growing the world? That's weird, isn't it? What about divorce? Does anyone know what the divorce rate is today as I talk to you? 50%. How many kids out there on YouTube watching this have lived through a painful divorce? I have. You remember that picture I showed you guys of my family? That was my stepmom. I have. How many kids have been through terrible depression because you grow up watching your family erode? I have. What about health? That's weird. As soon as we started printing money, we started printing industrial sludge to put in our gut. Turns out when you print money and you export the very fabric of society and you make everything about the marginal cost to produce things, you disease your food. That's weird. Since 1971, we're eating less beef, eggs, and milk, and we're eating more corn, cooking oils, and rice. That's weird, right? What about obesity? Do you guys know that in the United States, there's a such thing as an obese 2-year-old? What happened in 1971? That's weird. What about the cost it takes to keep us alive? Do you know that the life expectancy in Japan is about 10 to 15 years longer than that of the West? Look at the growth in health expenditures and healthcare versus the growth of the population. We're all sick. We all have metabolic disease. Cancer is growing faster than it ever has before. It seemed to start in 1971. That's weird. What about the housing crisis? That's weird. Housing's getting a lot more expensive, but we're not getting paid anymore. What? That's not what Trump told me. That's weird. This is housing in New York and Boston, and this is how much those people are getting paid. This is how long it took to save for a house before we started printing money. Now it takes a decade. What about inequality? I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. This is hourly compensation versus net productivity. That's weird. This is the 95th percentile's growth in wealth versus the rest of us. All in 1971. That's weird. The share of young people my age living in their parents' basement is higher today than it was in the Great Depression. I'm going to say that again. There are more people 18 to 29 living in their parents' house because they're depressed and they're jobless and they're in debt than there was during the Great Depression. That's weird. What about families with children that are living in poverty? You see that orange line? That's single mothers in poverty having kids. Why did it start in 1971? That's weird. Do you know what happens when you debase the money and export people's jobs and put them through divorce and put them on antidepressants? And people have to watch their friends commit suicide because no matter how hard they work, it's never enough. They become criminals. Who would have thought? That's weird. This is the growth of inmates, 1971. You see, I hope it's really clear in this keynote that money is power. You understand? Those who control the money control society. They decide who gets to prosper, who gets the big house, who gets to be happy and have family, and who doesn't, who suffers, who's in pain. Permit me to issue and control the money of a nation, and I care not who makes its laws. I don't care about the law system. I don't care about the rule you're about to change. How much money are you printing? That's all that matters.
I think it's insulting and depressing to see Stossel and Cato, both supposedly free market oriented people and organizations, covering for the parasites in the political and financial class. This is just nonsense. We need to put a stake through the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is the deepest of the deep state. Long live freedom, damn it.